Black Laws, Edition 9. Right. That which is proper under law, morality or ethics. Something that is due to a person by just claim, legal guarantee, or moral principle. A power, privilege, or immunity secured to a person by law. Black Laws, Edition 9. Absolute right. A right that belongs to every human being, such as the right of personal liberty, a natural right, an unqualified right, specifically a right that cannot be denied or curtailed except under specific conditions. Black Laws, Edition 9. Legal right. A right created or recognized by law. The breach of a legal right is usually redeemable by monetary damages. A right historically recognized by common law courts. The capacity of asserting a legal recognized claim against one with a correlative duty to act. Now, natural right. A natural right is a right that is conceived as part of natural law, and that is therefore thought to exist independently of rights created by government or society, such as the right to life, liberty, and property. See natural law. Black Laws, Edition 9. Natural law. A physical law of nature. Gravitation is a natural law, a philosophical system of legal and moral principles purportedly deriving from a universalized concept of human nature or divine justice, rather than from legislative or judicial action. The International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, Article 16. Everyone shall have the right to recognition everywhere as a person before the law. The Universal Declaration of Human Rights, Article 6. Everyone has the right to recognition everywhere as a person before the law. In the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, Article 6, it states that everyone has the right to recognition as a person before the law. And in Article 16 of the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, it states that everyone shall have the right. Everyone shall have the right to recognition as a person before the law. Now, when you look into black laws, you see that a human being has absolute rights. That's what it says. And these absolute rights, they belong to every human being. Every human being. And these rights that a human being has, that are absolute, that are attached to their nature, are natural rights. Natural rights. And all these natural rights and absolute rights are expressed within the charters when we get into them and start reading them and studying them. As we all know, one of the first articles that is mentioned in all of these charters and in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, it says that human beings are born free. And that's our status. We start from being free. Now, when you enter into recognition as a person, you then take on legal rights. Legal rights. They are no more considered natural rights, intrinsic to your nature as a human being. They are legal rights. It's a different term, it's a different designation. Now, what are these legal rights? Where do they come from? And how are they attached to us as human beings? And is there a difference in the rights that we receive through the legal rights than what we would have as a human being in our natural rights? The Universal Declaration of Human Rights, Article 1. All human beings are born free and equal in dignity and rights. all human beings are born free and they remain free. Now, free, remain free. That is an attribute that is part of us. We are born free, we remain free. Now, when this human being takes recognition as a legal person then owes allegiance to Her Majesty here in Canada and to her successors, the government agents, and a person is now a subject and a servant of the political system and of Her Majesty. So right there is a big difference. A human being is free and remains free, but if the everyone who is the human being enters into recognition as a legal person, their freedoms now are removed from them, and they are classified or designated under law as a servant or a subject of Her Majesty that owes allegiance to Her Majesty. So the freedom that the human being had has now been removed, and he is no longer in possession of that freedom. This is very clear that there is a difference in between the rights and freedoms of a human being and the benefits and the privileges that a legal person acquires. We continue with the designation that we first see the human is given, which is that a human being is free and remains free by choice, without giving away his consent. Now, the human being is free, but everyone has the right to partake in the government of his country. So everyone, the human being, has a right to partake in the government. Well, what type of right is that? It's not a natural right. It's a legal right. It's a legal right because when you partake in the government, when everyone, the human being, decides now to take recognition and partake in the government, we know, is considered a legal person, an artificial person. So the human being now enters into recognition as a person and then partakes of the political system and partakes with the government, the systems that the government has erected and instilled. And that's how they control the legal person. Now, again, the human being gets the legal right by taking recognition as a person and then partakes in the government, now listen to that, of his country. So they qualify it. They know that when they're saying of his country, this is referring to the person. Because the human being is free, and it can't be the human being's country. The human being doesn't have a country. So once that human being takes on the legal right and takes recognition as a person, he then partakes of the political system. And when he partakes of that political system, and when the human being takes on the designation of person, the rights that he's operating under are totally different now than if he would remain under the designation of human being. The person, the legal person, artificial person, who is considered a Canadian citizen, they or it has its rights and privileges conferred upon them. Conferred upon them. That's in the Financial Administration Act, Article 19, subsection 1. That's where it talks about this. And these rights and privileges are conferred upon them through charges and fees. You have to pay for your rights and privileges through charges and fees. And then they'll give you these rights and privileges through a license or permit or other authorization. Now it says that these rights and privileges are being conferred, given to the person, the Canadian citizen, through Her Majesty's approval, the Queen's approval. A human being, again, starts off born free and has the right to remain free. Now the human being also has rights, but instead of privileges, he has or she has freedoms. And these rights and freedoms are recognized recognized in law, and they are not conferred. They are not conferred upon us or upon you by Her Majesty, the Queen. You have, as a human being who is free, natural rights that are attached to you. And these rights are not conferred upon you by Her Majesty, the Queen. But when the human being enters into recognition or takes recognition as a juridical personality and becomes the person, the Canadian citizen, they are conferred, they are given legal rights. The human has his natural rights, and they are absolute to who he is or who she is, and the person has legal rights. And most of the rights, these legal rights that they have to pay for them through charges and fees. Once again, it's very clear that depending on what designation you're standing under, depending on what title you are operating under, you have different rights and freedoms. You will be treated differently, your life will be different, and your obligations and your liabilities will be different. On this side, you are liable to them. You must fulfill their wishes. On this side, they are liable to you. They have an accountability to the covenants. They have an accountability to the declarations. And if they don't fulfill your human rights and freedoms, then they are liable and accountable to you. The human being who is born free and has all the rights to remain free, they have a right to adequate housing. Now, you can transform that phrase in law to mean they have a right to an actual home. The right to a home. Now think, a human being who has a right to a home, this is a natural right. And it's an absolute right. Now in the covenants and in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, there's no qualification after this statement. It says everyone has the right to adequate housing. Everyone has the right to adequate housing. No other qualification. It's a right, an absolute right that you possess as a human being. You have the right to shelter from the elements because you have the right to live and you need that shelter from the elements. Now, if that human being enters into recognition as the legal person and stands as a legal person, well, he also has the right, or better yet, let's say the chance at a home or housing. Because now, this natural, absolute right that the human has to housing, to a home, has been qualified through a legal person. Now, if you want to have that home or housing, you have to have a steady job. You have to have it. You have to have good credit, a good beacon score, to be able to qualify for something that is termed or designated a mortgage. Now, if your legal person can successfully fulfill these steps, then you can exercise your right, better yet, your chance at having a home or a house. Now, even if you are the legal person and wanting to rent housing, which is not what this is describing, but let's play that out. If you wanted to rent housing, you would still have to qualify for that housing by providing either a credit score to the ones who you are seeking to rent a property from. They will ask to prove that you have a steady income, and they will have their own terms and conditions that they will want you to abide by, such as no animals, no pets, or whatever other terms and conditions. So again, the person is playing a game at chance to have a home or a housing. Yet, the human being has an absolute natural right to a home or a housing. legal rights and natural rights. The controlling mechanism that's in operation, it's pretty clear. It's based upon the fact that the human being, the man or the woman, once they take or enter into recognition, they change their status from being free to being a person who is a Canadian citizen, who is a subject of Her Majesty, that must obey and follow her laws. And her laws are, for example, income tax, speeding. All the laws, statutes, and regulations, the way they are constructed, it's supposed to be, it is indicated, and this is the way it is operating, that they are on behalf of Her Majesty for the persons or classes of persons that are operating in Canada. Now, those who are in the de facto position of authority, who are a third party to this original office of the sovereign, Her Majesty, they are sitting now in de facto power. A lot of them believe that for the better of humanity and for the better of human beings, men and women, that there is a need for this system here to continue. I can't agree with that, because this system here is enriching the very few, and it is hurting a lot of men and women all across our land. Families, children living in poverty, while the few who are in control are sitting back and drinking champagne and eating caviar and driving around in Lamborghinis. It's not correct that this is going on. There has to be a change. There is an awakening that is going on all across the world, and I hope that this awakening continues and that more and more people understand who they are and what rights they have, and the fact that they've been stripped of these rights so the few could enrich themselves on our back. This is not a conspiracy. This is not something that is violent or something that has been made up. This is reality. This is what is going on presently here in Canada, and you have been put to sleep through ignorance by making your focus elsewhere instead of inward as to why do I allow myself to be governed, and who has the authority to control me, and what mechanism are they using to control me.